We should now be live.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Okay, so good evening, members, and good evening to any members of the public who are watching this meeting on YouTube. We sit as the Town Council's Development, Management and Licensing Committee. Would members please remain muted unless they wish to speak. If you wish to speak, please indicate, and then I will call out your name and invite you to speak. But before we get to that stage, we'll do a roll call to confirm that you can hear me. Starting please with Councillor James Ellis.
I can hear you.
Thank you. And Councillor Tony Fay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Leslie Crawford.
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Councillor Graham Parker.
I can hear you, Chair.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Anne Johnson.
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Alan Lewis.
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Councillor Pete Squire.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Councillor Barry Smith.
I can hear you.
Deputy Mayor, Councillor Andrew Hutton.
I can hear you.
Councillor Alec Venning.
Yes, I can hear you.
And then Ward Member, Councillor Mrs. Ursula Mann.
I can hear you, thank you.
And we also have the Town Clerk, Carl Hearn, and the Assistant to the Town Clerk, Mrs. Jan Smollican. So we'll begin the agenda. And we start with apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence? We're all here, aren't we?
Yes, that everybody is present.
Thank you. Therefore, it follows, of course, that the committee is quorate this evening. Item 2 is minutes of the last meeting, the meeting held on Tuesday, the 5th of January, which are enclosed in your bundle. And are you all happy that they are an accurate reflection of what took place at the last meeting? Okay. Can I take, Graham, that as a motion to approve the minutes, please? Yep. And a seconder? Andy, thank you. All in favour? That's great. Thanks very much. Are there any matters arising not otherwise covered in the agenda this evening? No. In which case, agenda item 3, declarations of interest. If you know of any interest related to this evening's agenda, could you please tell us now? Are there any declarations of interest, please? That looks like a no, thank you. And as usual, if you do become aware of anything as we go through this evening's agenda, please let me know as soon as you become aware of it. That leads us to item 4, Dartmoor National Park, and specifically the Dartmoor local plan examination, and some paperwork has been circulated relating to this. And Graham, I think you've been keeping an eye on this one for us. I don't think any action is required from us, but are there any comments or observations that you would like to make to us, please?
Yeah, if I could just say that I've been in touch with Robert Young, who is the programme officer. He's the same programme officer that we had with the joint local plan. So I know how good he is. He remembers me. He's added me to the list, but I've asked him to keep Jan on the list as well so that we both get the same information. And I'll liaise with Jan as necessary. What I'm looking through the issues that he's raising and the questions he's raising, I don't honestly think that there's anything that we as a town council need to make submissions on or to appear on. All of the points that we've raised, he already has, the inspector already has in front of him. But I think it would be helpful, not least so that people can see how an examination is held. If people could dip in and out of the examination, it's going to go on for 5.5 days, and from the look of it, I think I'll probably be in attendance for 3 days. It's all by Zoom, and if others want to either join me or dip in on individual subjects. Each day deals with a series of set subjects and set questions. The inspector hears all the arguments and all the submissions and then goes away to write the report. So that's the way it'll work. It's at the, I've lost the timetable, so I can't remember. It's at the end of February going into March, isn't it, Jan?
I'm afraid I can't recall offhand.
No, okay, but I'll send the timetable out to everybody, and if anybody does want to join, let me know, and I'll ask Robert to send you the joining links. But at the moment, nothing particularly to report, except to say that all of the issues that we raised are on the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Graham. Moving on then to item 5, town planning issues. And I'm going to add an additional one to this one. So 5B will be the South Hams and West Devon housing strategy. So 5A, to consider a proposed traffic regulation amendment order for Chollicott Lane. There is a proposal to introduce a no waiting at any time restriction for a distance of 24 metres in a northwesterly direction from the southeast side, oh, for heaven's sake, on the right-hand side going uphill. And a map, I think, has been included in your bundle, and certainly is available online. Does anybody wish to make any comments about this proposal? Graham?
It seems to me it's in our ward. It seems to me to be very sensible, and I move that we support it.
Okay, any other views? Alec, are you supporting that, or do you have a point to make? Supporting it, thank you. Okay, so in which case, all in favour, please show. And that's carried. Thank you. So that brings us on to 5B, which is the South Hams and West Devon housing strategy, which is out for consultation. And James, as the Vice Chairman, has very kindly been keeping an eye on that. And I'll hand the floor to you, James.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, everyone's read it, but I'm gonna go through it and recap it before we have the discussion on it and comment. So, this is the South Hams and West Devon housing strategy, 2021 to 2026. Councillor Debo Sellis was our Borough Council lead on this, and it has 2 main themes for the future. Theme 1, housing for place, and theme 2, housing for people. And each of these themes has their own separate priorities, which I'll go through later on. The strapline for this whole document is better homes, better lives. So, like I say, before I go into the themes in a little bit of detail, I just want to go through the introduction and the evidence that they put together, just to give you some snippets and food for thought to fuel debate. So as part of their introduction, the strategy acknowledges the popularity of an area impacts on affordability, and that West Devon house prices are 10.6% times the average annual wage, and the average annual wage being 30k a year. The median age in West Devon is 50.4 years, which is 10 years older than the national average. And since the start of the pandemic, there has been an increase of outsiders moving to Devon. There is a possibility that the baseline data of earnings will be artificially increasing, which in turn may increase house prices. And they also acknowledge that there's economic displacement will increase due to house prices. So again, another question, where are young people going to live? And actually, when you speak to a lot of young people in Tavistock, their main mission once they get their qualifications is to move away from the town because they can't afford to live here. We also have above the national average in under-occupied homes. So they acknowledge that without a significant increase of smaller homes, this is only going to get worse. So as part of their introduction, they clearly state that all their future housing strategy will be delivered in line with the joint local plan, and that the fact that West Devon has declared a climate emergency. So then moving on to the evidence they've used to write the strategy, West Devon is projected to have a population increase of 4%. 63% of West Devon are economically active. I looked this up. That's just a posh way of saying you've got a job. With median earnings of £23,000. House prices in West Devon are 10.6 times the national average income, which again is £30,000. And there has been a 27% increase in house prices in West Devon in the last 5 years. So when they've looked at affordable housing, West Devon has enabled 95 affordable housing units since 2016-17. There are currently 2,000 people on the housing register, and 70% of those earn less than £20,000. So we've got a real issue of low earners not being able to get homes. Now, the thing I found very interesting was the average customer seeking to utilise the shared ownership scheme, part rent, part buy, is 42, earns just under £28,000 and has savings of just under £26,000. I don't know anyone in their 40s like that. And then when you look at private rental, they've put together data for private rental. West Devon average private renting rates range from £468 a month for a 1-bedroom property up to just shy of £1,000 a month for 4+ bedrooms. So it's a really expensive rental area. And when you take all those figures together, the one shocking thing from it all is that West Devon is 12.6% above the national average in regards to fuel poverty. So that's quite shocking to me. So if we move on to their first theme, housing for place. I haven't put all the priorities in. I've just sort of picked out what I thought might be of interest to the committee and the council. There are more priorities that you can look into and read into should you see fit. But priority number 1 is ensuring sustainable housing growth and how they intend to deliver it. So through the joint local plan, deliver 7,000 high quality, sustainable and affordable houses during the lifetime of the plan across South Hams and West Devon. They want to support opportunities for self-build, explore the concepts of the council as a developer and landlord of new housing, build a genuinely affordable, high quality housing for our communities through a cost-efficient, standardised model. Redevelop existing homeless provision in West Devon to ensure good quality accommodation for people when they need it most, and achieve high quality environmental standards. Priority 2, promote balanced and sustainable communities. So they want to actively encourage housing developments that reduce carbon footprint, fuel poverty, and will be resilient to future changes in our climate. Ensure developments contribute to biodiversity net gain wherever possible. Support the creation of innovative neighbourhood plan policies that are responsive to local housing needs and aim for carbon neutral developments as standard. And then priority 3, ensure that homes support the health and well-being of the area. So they want to plan for future health needs. They want to work collaboratively with providers to respond to a need for an extra care facility in West Devon. Ensure new affordable housing for older people adequately meets future need. They want to encourage the development of energy efficient, affordable homes to reduce carbon emissions and reduce household heating costs. And they want to enable wheelchair standard accommodation on new housing developments in line with adopted planning policy requirements to actively increase the stock of this type of affordable housing. So then moving on to theme 2, housing for people. Priority 1, homes that support the health and well-being of our residents. So they want to do that by promoting and supporting energy efficiency in homes, proactively support independent living, and also support people with disabilities to remain in their home. And they want to develop a fuel poverty action plan. Priority 2, make the best use and improve the quality of existing housing. So some of the ways they plan to do that is seek to expand our own in-house private letting service, Seymour Lettings. They want to encourage long-term empty houses back into use. They want to address under and over occupation. They want to work with their partners to seek redevelopment opportunities. They want to support and encourage HMOs. And they want to meet priorities of their standalone homeless and rush sleeper strategy. And then priority 3, ensure that people can access the support and advice they require to make best use of data. So they want to work to reduce antisocial behaviour, prevent homelessness, interrogate new census data to predict future housing needs. They want to achieve dementia-friendly status, and they want to regularly communicate with residents, agencies, partners, and communities. So they're their themes and their priorities. And then right at the end of this document, they sort of put a caveat on achieving the goals contained within this strategy. So their first sort of caveat was resources. So anything they do cannot contravene their policy of declaring a climate emergency. And they recognise this will be especially challenging in regards to reducing fuel poverty. And obviously the other caveat is money. However, they say that staffing and budgetary resources required to deliver the strategy will be set out in detail in their operational delivery plan and fully costed. So how will the strategy be monitored? This plan has got a lifespan of 5 years. They're aiming to review it annually. And then they're going to produce an updated plan every spring, which will set out the key challenges for the following year, as well as achievements for the last. And they're going to produce an operational delivery plan annually with SMART goals. So for those of you that don't know what SMART is, it is a SMART goal. It is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. So that's my research into the document. Like I said, all the snippets I've pulled out is not the total document in its entirety. So if you're interested in any of those themes, go back and read it for yourself. And now I'll leave it open for discussion.
Thank you, James. I haven't looked at this document in the depth that you clearly have, but I have looked at it, and I think you've captured the elements of it very nicely, and I thank you very much indeed for that. It is a strategic document. I came away from it thinking, yes, these are fine aims, but the document gives no idea how they're actually going to be achieved. But I guess that's where the subsequent operational document comes into play, the operational plan. Members, this is open to discussion. if any of you wish to make any comments or ask any questions, please. Pete Squire.
I'd like to say thank you to Councillor James Ellis for a very clear exposition of a document I have to admit I've not read as yet, and it's clearly enticed me to have a look at it for myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Any other comments, please? Graham?
I want to repeat the first bit of what Pete Squire has just said. James, I think that was I have read the document, every word, and I think that was as good a summary as could have been done. And congratulations and thank you for doing that. I also agree with you, Chair. I listened very hard to James. Virtually every sentence that James uttered started with, they want to. And there was nothing that says they intend to. It's a strategy with no targets, and it doesn't say how they're actually going to do things. Now, I agree that an operational delivery plan will go into the detail, but I mean, I liken it to a ship's voyage. If you don't know where you're going and what kind of ship you've got to travel on, you can't plan your journey. And this strategy just seems to be at the moment a list of the things that they want to do, a wish list. So, I mean, I would certainly look forward to the next document, but I'm not sure how, as someone who's practiced in doing this kind of thing, how I could turn this wish list into an operational delivery plan. Having said that, James, I think, has picked on the two key elements that kind of jump out at you as you read the document. The two big issues do seem to be small homes, so the size of homes, and that's in the not just in the rented sector. There's an emphasis on the rented sector rather than the market and self-ownership sector. But small homes seems to be key to what this strategy is about. The issue of affordability. I mean, it was interesting. James also you highlighted a phrase that I picked up on as well. Build homes that are genuinely affordable. It raises the question: what on earth have they been doing so far? I mean, that's something I think that might be a subject for Alex next week. What does genuinely affordable mean in the context of West Devon? There's a couple of issues. I have always supported the principle of self-build over the years, both professionally and personally. I've supported self-build projects, and I particularly support those that train people as they build. So you work alongside a plasterer and learn how to plaster, and then you can plaster across the whole group of houses that's being built while somebody else is learning joinery and such like. So I think self-build, there's a lot of scope for. The question is raised in this document about whether the council should develop and become a landlord once more. That there's a separate consultation out on that at the moment, and I must admit I'm in two minds about that. I think my own view says that this council is too small. West Devon is too small to effectively rebuild a new housing stock, and anything they do would be kind of operating around the edges. But I think we would need to think about that a lot more before before I could offer a view. A couple of small points. I was interested, James, in in how many affordable housing units have been built in West Devon compared with the South Hams. According to this document, West Devon since 2016 has built 95 affordable housing units. South Hams has built 483. Now, South Ham's targets are about twice as high as ours, but their product seems to be 5 times as high. And I just wonder why. And maybe the answer somewhere is that South Hams has joined with Homes England and become an investment partner with Homes England, which, according to the document, means that they can draw down grants a lot easier. And I wonder why West Devon haven't done that. And then finally, on page 9, I think there's a lovely phrase there which stresses that they're looking to build places that are created for enterprise to thrive and businesses to grow. I think we may come back to that one later. But thank you, James. I absolutely endorse what you said. It was a really good summary for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Anybody else want to make a comment? Okay, so James, if I come back to you, what action would you like this committee to take?
I think we should welcome the strategy and encourage the fruition of the operational delivery, and we certainly look forward to some affordable homes for our young people. But because my comment for the whole document really is, unless we can start making Tavistock affordable for the next generation, then our shops we're going to have nobody to operate our shops. People are going to be economically pushed out of the place, and it's just going to be one big nursing home. But yeah, I think we should encourage the document, and we look forward to the operational delivery of it.
Okay, thank you very much. Are you all happy that we feedback along those lines, members? Yes? Okay, fine. James, working with Jan, do you want to put something together to submit on our behalf?
Yeah, not a problem, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So I'll just watch until I can see that Jan's ready.
This will be a recommendation to council tomorrow.
Okay,
So
thank
we'll
you.
frame it in that way.
Yep, that's fine. Okay, so agenda item 6 is general correspondence, and we haven't received anything that I'm aware of. And agenda item 7, urgent business, brought forward by the chairman, and I have nothing urgent to bring forward to you. So we move on to 8, planning applications, and 8A, decisions by West Devon Borough Council. Do any of you want to say anything about any of the decisions in your bundle? Okay, Graham?
Yeah, 2 comments, if I may. One is 11A Mount Taby Road. It was just recalling our own conversation where we said there was local knowledge supports the building is being used for this purpose for in excess of 60 years. It's helpful to read the officer's report. The officer doesn't deny that it's been used on and off for that purpose going back into the mists of time. But the question is it still being used? And has it been used over the period of the last 10 years for that purpose? And the fact is that many people were willing to say, yeah, we remember it in the 60s and the 70s and maybe even in the 90s, but nobody could demonstrate that it has 10 years of continuous use, which is why it was refused.
Okay, thank you.
The second one is, I guess like a lot of other people, I couldn't get onto the West Devon website this afternoon, but I understand that on the Down Road one, where we said subject to condition it's not used as separate accommodation and remains ancillary to the property. I understand that the officer didn't believe that such a condition could be imposed, and imposed a different one, which if what I was told is correct, then I think it will cause a problem into the future. I understand that the condition was put on that that garage should only be occupied by a family member, which begs the question: what happens if the family in the main house move away, or if, heaven forbid, they pass on? Personal conditions like that are always a nightmare. But that's the only comments I've got here.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And we'll be coming back to 11A Tavy Road shortly. Any other comments, members? In which case, let's move on to 8B. Now, I do understand that some of you may have been planning to look at applications this afternoon, but unfortunately, the planning portal crashed at about 1:15 this afternoon. And certainly when I last looked shortly before joining this meeting, it was still crashed. So that may limit some of your comments, unfortunately, but we'll do as best we can. We'll start with the major application. So this is the Baker Estates application to build on land to the south of Plymouth Road. And we have twice deferred this. We've had a lot of time to look at the paperwork related to this application. We have received a presentation from representatives of Baker Estates. So I think we probably know more about this application than any application we've considered probably all the time that I've been on the committee, which is 6 years or thereabouts. So we do know a lot about it. What I propose doing is going around the screen and asking you all in turn whether there's anything you wish to say about this application or to ask about this application. And then we'll see where we are when everyone's had an opportunity. Now, because of the size of the application, we can't make a decision this evening. What we will be doing is making a recommendation to council that will be considered tomorrow evening. And then, depending on the outcome of that, the recommendation with any modifications will go to the local planning authority. We may have an opportunity to make further comments. My understanding is there are some items yet to be fully researched in the application, and we have asked that as new information becomes available, we're informed of that, so we have an opportunity to add any additional comments when the time comes. So without further ado, could I start with Alec? Alec, is there anything you wish to say about this application, please?
No, I'm quite happy. We talked about it a lot in the last meeting. As before, my main concern is employment and facilities for the older people. That's all I've got to say about it, really.
Okay, thank you, Alec. And then could I ask Alan?
Yes, my main concern is the traffic problems and safety on the main road. I really am quite alarmed by that. So that's my, I'm against it really because of that.
Okay, thank you very much. Barry. We can't hear you, Barry, I'm afraid.
Can everyone hear me?
We can now.
Okay. I welcome the inclusion of the bungalows. I deplore the total lack of affordable housing or finance towards it. there's a lack of provision in the scheme for education, transport and education. And I think the care home is too large. It will not, I don't think it will be viable in a smaller format there. There's not enough employment opportunity. And as has just been said, I think the road access is not being thought out, how you get there, how you get back, and whether you can use a bus. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Tony?
Yes, I agree with all previous points. My other concern is, which I have expressed before, the fact we are looking at an application which is based on a hypothetical situation of the care home, which is taking place of there not being affordable housing. Also, the transport issue is a great problem as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Leslie?
Yes, I think the road safety is a difficult issue. I think the lack of affordable homes and the idea of building the nursing home in lieu just doesn't work for me at all. And it's not even definite that it will be built. And I don't know what liability that puts West Devon under by buying it for £1. And the lack of Section 106 agreements of any real value. That, you know, we don't have education there, we don't have the transport in there. So yeah, I'm not in favour of it, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much. Okay. Pete?
I agree with all the previous councillors' comments, and intuitively I'm against such a greenfield site being utilised as such a wasted opportunity for development. So I'm opposed to it.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor?
I divide into two really. The houses, the bungalows, the actual houses I quite like. I'm very worried about the transport, the access to the site. My biggest concern though about this site is this should be employment land. Tavistock is desperate for somewhere for people to work and create new businesses. And the idea of getting away from employment land by doing a 5-storey, 60-bed nursing for rest home type facility, which really I do not think would fit at all in that point of land. So I think we really have to push, not so much against the housing, it's the idea that potentially we are ignoring the fact that that has been designated, that area, as land for employment. And we haven't got a good substitute. It's either employment, good employment, or it's not.
Okay, thank you very much. And Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask that any submission that Town Council makes, we should make it absolutely clear that this is the opinion of Tavistock Town Council as at today's date, with the made considering the information before us today, because there will be new stuff that comes along, and this needs to be a line in the sand as far as the Town Council is concerned. We don't want to, if things change, we don't want to be, you know, this is where we stand at the moment. I have concerns. These are going to be very expensive properties out of the pocket of lots and lots of people. I think I'm disappointed there's no affordable housing. I think the lack of Section 106 support for education and transport is not acceptable. The land designated for employment, 22 full-time equivalent jobs, I don't think is what's intended the joint local plan. I think, you know, this was an opportunity to create some jobs for people in Tavistock for a sustainable future, and I think that this fails on that. Road safety is a concern for mine. I think there definitely needs to be a look to see whether or not there needs to be a roundabout. The road, the A386, is very busy. Lots of cars go a lot faster than the 30 mile an hour limit. So I think road safety is quite important to me. And I do think the care home positioned where it's suggested is 5 stories is large, it's imposing, and I don't think it will have a very good effect, certainly on the gateway of Tavistock. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. We have 2 ward members present with us as well. Ursula, Mandy, do either of you wish to say anything? Ursula?
Yeah, I think it's really timely that Councillor Ellis had such a great presentation of the housing strategy going forward for the next 6 years from West Devon, because I think that this particular housing proposal kind of violates all of those principles and isn't in line with the joint local plan. So there's not a single aspect of it for me that seems to fit with the aspirational goals, for which we have no operational manual. And I'm just really frustrated that we would get to this point where we're having to discuss it to this seriousness when it doesn't meet any of those goals and it doesn't fall in line with the joint local plan. On all of these things that we're specifically mentioning, like the employment land, are in the joint local plan. This isn't something that is being brought up just now because of this development. It's something that's a long-term plan for Tavistock that has been part of an oversight of the whole community trying to work together to handle the houses that are going to be built in this area and to do it with the best layout, the best amount, the best resources. So it's a more overarching problem that I have with the way that we're being continually asked to compromise on both the joint local plan and all of the sort of strategic housing and strategic community goals that we should be meeting as a council, and specifically for Tavistock. So, I'm disturbed because, when we mention something like road safety, or we mention something like the schools, this isn't about this particular development, although those things are missing in this particular development for sure. It is about the fact that it's actually, we're missing it kind of over and over again, which is going to have a knock-on effect to our community. And that's what I'm finding so frustrating. So I personally want to also just comment on the procedure, the process that brings us to this place where we're being presented by a developer who's presented in a way that says, this is all okay, when we have a document that we're also considering tonight that would absolutely not be met with the kinds of things that we're bringing up about this particular development. So how did we get there yet again on another development that's for Tavistock? So whatever we do, I do think we need to go back and say the joint local plan should be enforced, and we shouldn't be being presented with planning applications that don't meet at least the basic provisions of you can make exceptions if there was something great about this development, then we could have an exception to it. But there's nothing particularly great about this development. It's just a sort of really sort of slow compromise into a place where we end up with a retirement home that's 5 stories at the entrance, and nobody can get in or out because there's going to be road traffic everywhere. So that's what my final say. But I was not, all the information that's been presented, none of it has convinced me that there's something great about this development that we should make an exception to any of those features of the joint local plan or our planning policy in general in West Devon.
Thank you very much indeed for that. Mandy, do you wish to say anything? You're muted, Mandy.
Sorry, I'm having to do this on my telephone tonight, and I don't have a clue what I'm doing because I couldn't get it to go onto my laptop. I've been really interested to sit and listen to the views of the Town Council as the West Devon Borough member for this ward. I understand and actually agree with actually every single thing that has been said. What is the point in having a joint local plan when you're not going to adhere to it on your first major application that comes up from it being endorsed? And those concerns lead me to think that if the developer can get away with it now, well, the joint local plan, I think, goes to 2026, What is the point of having it when the very first application that is of a major standard is just ignoring it? So those views, and particularly road transport, pedestrian access, no section 106, which I went off on one about the other day when we had a meeting, to me is really important. We have to keep our residents safe. And if they have got this, extra care facility, walking arrangements and things like that are going to be imperative to this site, because people will want to go out, and just have a wander about. Being a carer, I can tell you that it's a few footsteps. People like to get out and about. And if this development is not safe for them to do that, they shouldn't be putting a home in this place. And also with regard to the hybrid bit, I am very, very concerned about the lack of parking and the complete lack of jobs. They say they will create 22 new jobs, but most of the people who will go into this facility probably already have carers. So actually all it's doing is displacing. It's not actually creating. So there's my views. Sorry, Councillor Ward.
Thank you very much, Mandy, and don't worry about the dog. I have 2 terriers in the room with me, and I'm just waiting for them to start barking as well.
I know Bentley's only started when I went to press my computer.
The joys of working from home.
It is. Thank you very much, everyone.
And Graham, sorry to keep you waiting.
Not a problem, Chairman. I guess like the rest of you, I feel a real sense of frustration about the way in which Tavistock's being treated, and the local plan being ignored by our superior councillors. I mean, some of you know that for the first half of my career, I worked for Bristol City Council as their head policy officer. I was a deputy city planning officer, and that's a city with the population of Plymouth, South Hams and West Devon combined. It wasn't a difficult job. Planning policy making isn't difficult. You work with local communities and elected members. You listen to them when they tell you what their aspirations are for the future. You draw up a local plan to express those aspirations, and you get that local plan adopted. That's what happened in this area 18 months ago. And the joint local plan is one of the best I've ever worked with. It's something that the 3 councils can be really proud of. But then they have to implement it, and that's when the problems always start. Negotiations sometimes go in odd directions, and often members and officers simply forget what the local plan says. Having said that, sometimes you think that they haven't actually read it at all. Now, I've seen what the applicant has to say. I've seen what the county councils had to say. And along with the rest of you, I heard what West Devon had to say at our briefing last week. But today, I've also read what the local plan team has written. And that disturbs me really very, very badly. Now, the good news appears to be that there's been no commitment from the Borough Council for the extra care home. We were told that last week. And certainly no commitment for the £1 deal. The better news is that unlike the former Vistry site next door, and of course people will know that Vistry have walked away from that site, West Devon's requiring Baker Estates to show what the height and mass of the extra care home will be, and how you can, and whether 24 parking spaces will be adequate. Now at 5 stories, my own view is, that's the size of the Top Ness extra care home that they're modelling this on. This proposal would be the biggest, tallest and bulkiest carbuncle in Tavistock, which is presumably why the applicant hasn't included any details in this application in the first place. Luckily, we're going to be reconsulted on this, and I think we should thank West Devon for committing themselves to that. But that's about it for the good news. If we look at how the various councils have been dealing with the joint local plan says that every housing development will provide 30% affordable housing. According to Baker, West Devon have said, no, we won't be asking for any. on the Baker part of the development. The local plan says that housing developers will pay for a new primary school in Tavistock. Now, despite being £2 million short on the cost of this school, and the Freedom of Information request that I served on Devon County confirms that they'll only be able to raise £2.5 million for a £4.5 million school. Despite that, Devon County says, no, we won't be asking Baker for a contribution. And West Devon told us last week that they doubt that they'll be able to change the county council's mind. The local plan says that local bus services will be supported, particularly those that link with the proposed rail station. Devon County says in this case, no, we're not bothering with this. No, they haven't given any reason. They've just said, no, we're not bothering with it. West Devon tells us again that they don't think they'll be able to change the county's mind. The local plan says there should be 18,600 square metres of B1 employment on the site. The joint local plan team now says, based in Plymouth, well, we didn't really mean this. 8,500 square metres will be fine. There's plenty of employment buildings in Totnes, Kingsbridge, Ivybridge and Oakhampton for the people of Tavistock. That's essentially what that comment says. Now, to be fair, we don't yet know what West Devon is going to make about that. And finally, the local plan team also says, have an extra care home instead of the missing 10,000 square metres of B1 employment. And that's despite their own local plan telling us that they shouldn't do that. Finally, let me debunk something that may well have confused you so far. The applicant says that the extra care home meets an urgent need for a facility that's required by a policy of the local plan, and some of the officers that we've listened to seem to repeat that this extra care facility is a product of a policy of the local plan. To coin a phrase, that is bunkum. The Joint Local Towns team's comment makes it very clear, and they point it out to us, so I've got no hesitation in returning it back to them, makes it very clear there's a difference between the policies of a local plan and the text of a local plan. The text is there to explain and amplify the policies. It isn't policy in its own right. Their comment makes that important distinction in respect of whether or not the Baker land is employed for employment. They say that's only in the text, so that really doesn't count. The fact that the proposal to map also says that actually makes nonsense of that. But let's put that to one side for the moment. The fact is that the team says it's the policies of the plan, not the supporting text, that carry the statutory weight. That makes it all the more puzzling why they go on to say that they're content that the extra care home can be substituted on this site for 10,000 square metres of the B1 employment space. That's over 200 jobs. They've knocking to one side for an extra care home that they say will produce 22 jobs that I agree with Mandy, most of which will simply be relocated. But the B1 employment space is clearly a policy of the local plan. It is there, spelt out in policy TT17. An extra care home is not a requirement of any policy at all in that local plan. Just one single sentence of text mentions an extra care home, and that single sentence cannot knock out, supersede or rewrite policy TTV17, which is what the applicant and now the Joint Local Plan team seem to be trying to do. Their comment is wrong in a number of ways, but this one's at the heart of the whole application. There is no justification in the Joint Local Plan policies for an extra care home to knock out over half of the business and employment space that is essential to Tavistock's sustainable future. I'm going to finish by saying, Chair, I were really proud of the town councillors last week who stood forward, and the way in which they put these points, all of those points about employment land, about the nature of the extra care home, about the section 106, about the sustainable needs of a town like Tavistock. I'm really proud of that. And our job, and I'm equally proud of what was said as what's been said tonight. I mean, this is some of the most lucid discussion I've ever heard in any town council. Our job, unlike West Devon and Devon County, is to do our level best for the people and businesses and communities of Tavistock. If that means that we have to be the ones to stand up for the town's sustainability, for applying the policies of and keeping the promises that were made in the local plan, I hope that we have got the nerve to do it. And I'll say now, Chair, and having reviewed everything that I have so far, I feel there is a need to draw a line in the sand. I agree with the Mayor, and I will be certainly voting to object to this application.
Okay, thank you very much, Graham. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with all my fellow councillors. When I look at this plan, I cannot even believe it made it past pre-application inquiries. It is an exclusive estate coming to Tavistock. Let's make that very clear. It is going to be an exclusive estate that very few people that were born, lived, worked and went to school here will be able to afford, which is absolutely shocking. So it doesn't meet TTV 17. And we're told that, you know, we don't need the affordable housing because we're promised that we're going to have this magical care home, which may never be built. And if it is built, it's going to be an abomination at the entrance to our World Heritage Site of a town. I look at it and I want to appeal to those that are going to be looking at things like the road data for road safety. Please don't look at data. Please listen to the local people that live here, travel on the roads and the pavements every single day. The pedestrian access to this estate is dangerous. The vehicular access to this estate will be dangerous. It needs a roundabout. There is, like I said, there's no affordable housing. The play park that they're intending to put in is an excuse for a play park. It's absolutely shocking. So I want to appeal to those that make the decisions that they actually listen to local people. Like the Mayor said, this is our line in the sand now because we're being asked to comment on a plan that may and will change. Which sort of, I look at it and think it doesn't just need to change in minor detail, it needs to change completely. I'm obviously going to recommend an objection to this, and it will just be interesting to see how it changes for the future at Tavistock. This is our last bit of development land for several years. We need to make the most of it. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Leslie, sorry, go on.
Sorry, I just wanted to make one point. It was highlighted really to me when Graham was speaking about the way the attitude of Devon County Council that we didn't need to worry about those things. This is public money that would subsidise the education and the transport and everything else by them not doing adequate 106 agreements. And I think they just need to be reminded that it's not up to them to decide what happens with local money. So it's just, sorry, I just feel really strongly about that. It's just not acceptable.
Okay, thank you. In my capacity as chairman, it is my view that we are here to represent the best interests of Tavistock, not of the whole joint local plan area. And we are all aware that over the course of the last couple of years or more, we have been hearing more and more parishioners telling us that they are worried about the gap between the increasing number of houses and the lack of any increase or improvement in the infrastructure required to support those houses or their residents. I'm also very much aware that we operate within a planning system that is governed by plans. In our case, the joint local plan. And I completely agree with members that I see no justification for departing from what the joint local plan prescribes for this TTV 17 site of land, parcel of land. We've been led to expect 18,600 square meters of employment floor space. We're being asked to accept no more than 8,500 square meters. There are those who are saying that that is perfectly acceptable because there is plenty of employment land available elsewhere in the joint local plan area. Whether that's the case or not, I would put it to you that that is irrelevant, because what is important to us is the future of this town. And it is very clear to me that the joint local plan was not talking just about current market need for employment space and land. It was talking about the future of the town's future sustainability. And one of the things we hear parishioners telling us is they're worried about the gap between houses and employment. And I don't think any of us or any of our constituents want to see Tavistock become a dormitory for Plymouth and to some degree Exeter. If we want the town to thrive, there's got to be work here. James earlier on mentioned that in the housing strategy, specific mention is made of the fact that young people are moving away from Tavistock because they can't find anywhere to live or anywhere to work. And we as a town council have to do what is within our authority and our ability to try to prevent that from happening. I cannot support this application. My grounds for objection are firstly that it is in breach of the joint local plan, particularly with regard to B1 employment, and no compelling justification for that is being offered to us. I object to the failure to make any contribution towards affordable homes, either on site or a financial contribution towards them. And I think selling the parcel of land to the borough for £1 is no justification for being let off the hook for contributing to affordable housing. Similarly, I do not accept that this site should be exempt from making a contribution to primary school provision. We know that there's a shortage of primary school places coming towards us. And we also know that the county at the moment doesn't have enough money to build the proposed school off the Cullington Road. It therefore makes no sense at all to fail to impose a educational contribution in the Section 106 agreement here. The same applies to the bus. It can be said that yes, there's the service number 1, it goes past the development site, but that only goes to the bus station. The town bus, the 89, goes to other important destinations, not least of which the proposed new railway station, the Tavistock Hospital, Tavyside Health Centre, and others. That service is dependent on monies contributed by developers. This is the last major development site in the joint local plan. How on earth can it be absolved from making a contribution to such an important local service? What else? The extra care facility, if it is to be modelled on the Totnes model, it is going to be a very large building, 5 stories high in its highest point. That is unacceptable in that location. In the end, it may end up being rather smaller than that, in which case, will it be financially viable? I am not persuaded that that is an immediate priority for the town. And like the rest of you, I'm concerned about the vehicular access to the site. If the proposed access goes ahead, we will have 4 junctions on the A386 within a very short distance. We'll have the top of Anderton Lane, we'll have the access site to what we have previously called the Linden Homes site, we will have this one, and we will have well, actually there'll be 5, because there'll be Tiddybrook and then the Bishopsmead. So there'll be 5 junctions within a short stretch of road on a very major road. And finally, I fully endorse the very, very detailed submission made by Transition Tavistock, who looked at the sustainable active transport, in other words, pedestrian and cycling, from this site into the town. And they have submitted an objection on the grounds that it just isn't good enough. For all of those reasons, members, I cannot support this application, and I will be voting to object to it. Now that everyone's had their say, does anybody wish to propose a motion? Graham.
Chair, I don't think anyone could have put an objection in a better form than you've just done. The 6 or 7 points that you just raised, I support every one. They are, and they appear to be comprehensive. I can't think of anything that you've missed off. So to move things along, I move that we object to this application on the grounds that you've just spelt out.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Andy Hutton. Does anybody wish to debate it any further? In which case, let's move to a vote. All those in favour of the motion, please show. And that would appear to be unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Draw breath. And we will move on to the next item on the agenda. Before we go on to the remaining applications, can you just raise a hand if you have been able to look at them? Because I know some of you haven't been able to this afternoon because of the planning portal going down.
Yep.
If you have been able to look at it, could you raise a hand? Anne, Barry, I have, James, Leslie, Alan. We've probably got enough to be able to continue. What do you want to do? Anne?
Well, firstly, can we express our great concern to West Devon Borough Council that this simply is not good enough? They're expecting us to comment on applications, and yet the technology is not fit for purpose.
Yes, I don't know what's happened, obviously, but it does seem particularly annoying given that we're no longer provided with paper applications. Leslie?
I just wanted to make it clear that I was only able to look at our next application. I wasn't able to get onto the site to look at any of the others. Okay. So just be clear on that.
Andy?
I'd just like to say, I usually look at these a day or two before, but I couldn't today. But I haven't looked at these. I think we should go ahead because I think there's enough members who have looked at them and they want comments. But can we, people who are talking about it, just should be aware that 2 or 3 of us really have not seen anything on these, and just put a little bit more background briefing for us, please.
Okay. Ursula?
I'm just going to say my goodbyes. I have logged on straight after work, but I haven't read any of those, so I'm going to leave it to the committee.
Okay, thank you, Ursula. Cheerio. Graham?
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I've always taken that the duty of anybody commenting on an application or determining it is that you've read all of the documentation and you're fully familiar with all sides of it. I haven't been able to look at any of these applications today, so I'm happy to sit and listen, but I won't be taking any part in the discussion or in the voting. I don't think that's fair.
Righto, thank you. James and then Anne.
Thank you, Chairman. I've looked at these planning applications, but I haven't gone into my usual in-depth detail that I like to. So I don't believe I can give these applications as much justice as I give to other applications we receive in DM&L.
Okay. Anne?
Thank you. I then have to question whether or not, because people have not had the opportunity to look at the applications because of the failure of the planning portal, whether or not we're quorate to make a decision.
I think that's a good point. Mandy, you had something to say.
Yes, I was going to say the same as Anne about choracy, but also to look at some of them, they don't need a reply until the 18th of February on one of them. So maybe you'd be able to, if some people have looked at the first ones, etc., and I can see a couple of trees, that you maybe can make some decisions and then defer the rest until the next DM&L meeting. And I'm probably going to disappear now as well.
Okay, thank you, Mandy.
All right, thank you all very much.
Okay, in which case, can we address the issue of quoracy? If you feel able to continue with these applications, would you please just raise your hand so we can do a count? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, including myself. I think, James, that's a no, isn't it, really? Yeah, I think it's really a no. I think we've got only 4 then, have we? Jan, could you remind me of the quorum, please?
I don't think we will meet the quorum. The only thing I could say is, as Councillor Ewings has just said, some of them we can defer until the next DM&L on the 16th of February. So the ones towards the end of the list. Obviously, the 2 tree ones we usually refer anyway.
Indeed, yeah.
They fall before that meeting. I suppose the only issue is the cricket club, the Mount Avey Road, Chaucer Road.
Yeah.
Just those 3.
Okay. Well, I'm afraid if we're not quorate, we're not quorate. Leslie?
I just say, I don't know if it makes a difference. I did, as I say, look at the cricket club one. So I could vote on that one. Well, does that make a difference? Does that make us quorate? There's only 1.
That would be 5, Jan.
Yeah, that'd be quorate. I think it's only about a third for plans.
I think it is.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't hear you, Jan.
Sorry. Well, we've got 11 members of the committee, although obviously the mayor and deputy mayor are ex officio, but they can vote on DM&L.
Of course.
So I think if Councillor Crawford is confident that she can respond on that one, we could deal with that one this evening.
Okay. In which case, members, I propose that we address the cricket club application. We refer the tree applications. Sorry, James.
Sorry, Chairman. Could I make a very polite suggestion?
Please.
Before this council got into the wonders of Zoom, we, at the very start of the pandemic, we all looked at the plans and then forwarded you our comments, from which you sifted out and came up with a comment for each plan. So potentially at the next meeting we could end up with a lot of plans to go through, and it'll be a very long meeting. How do you feel as chairman if we do that again? Because, for instance, the website could be back up and running tomorrow. We could all look at the plans and forward you our comments as we see fit.
Okay, I'm going to suggest this, that we take the cricket club application, because we're quorate for that one, that we refer the tree applications to the tree officer, because we would do that anyway, that where we have got the time to address the applications at the next meeting, we do so. That will leave us, I think, just with Mount Avey Road, Chaucer Road, just those 2. And if members are agreeable, I would be happy to receive your comments on those. Please also indicate whether you support or oppose, and if you oppose, on what grounds. And I will try to put that together as a response. Jan, do you think that approach is acceptable?
I would think that would be fine.
Okay, fine. In which case, can I suggest that that's how we manage this situation? Okay, thank you. In which case, the application to consider is the Tavistock Cricket Club, extension and alterations to the cricket pavilion. Essentially, they want to put a small extension on one side of it to accommodate additional changing facilities. They want to make some changes to ceiling height and therefore roof height to avoid a change in floor level in the middle of the clubhouse. They want to make it more accessible to disabled people, including the creation of a disabled WC. And they want to create a new and improved ladies' changing room. And so those are the essential ingredients. Now, from the outside, what you would see is the replacement of a corrugated iron sloping roof with a more modern horizontal roof, but it would be slightly higher. And you would see some iron railings around the terrace at the front of the clubhouse, which they would like to have to stop animals from soiling on the terrace. And the terrace itself would be paved. At the moment, I understand it's concrete. Now, I have to say, from my own point of view, it's not exactly an architectural masterpiece, that building. It's very functional. It's not pretty. And from what I can see of the elevations in this application, it would be an improvement. There are two representations supporting this application on the website. There is one representation opposing it, but actually when you read that opposition, it's opposing the whole principle of people driving up there, parking, compressing the soil, and really I think the objector, his objections didn't seem to be specific to this application, other than commenting that it might increase the number of people going there and using the clubhouse, and therefore exacerbating the parking issue, etc. Now, that's how I hope I've represented the application accurately in doing that. Very happy now to receive comments, please. Pete.
Well, I support it on the grounds that you've just raised, and I think I have every confidence that it'll be a reasonable development for that particular facility. Cricket's a dangerous game and needs all the safety it can get, really.
Any other comments, please? Barry?
I'm happy to accept that and support it, Chair. It seems fine to me, and it's an improvement to the building, which, as you said, is not exactly an eyesore, but it's not exactly the most wonderful building, but it's doing something for the local area, and I would support that.
Okay, thank you. And any other comments? In which, Anne?
Sorry, just to say that I would support it as well. I mean, it's good to increase the facilities available to Tavistock Cricket Club. It's been there providing for a long time, and I hope it will provide cricketing facilities for a long time into the future. So okay. I'm happy to support it.
Right, thanks very much indeed. Okay, so do you have a comment to make, Mandy? Sorry, we can't hear you. You're still muted at the moment.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just going to make the comment. I think Whitchurch are now going to started to develop a women's team, a ladies' team. So they need those facilities. And I think we should really be encouraging sports that have been typically a male sport that are now integrating with ladies' sports as well. And they do need the facilities there to be able to do that. And I think it will be a good facility to be able to enable that, and for ladies teams to come and travel to Tavistock knowing that there are facilities there. And as you've quite rightly said, and I used to walk around the building most days when I lived up there, it's not the prettiest, but actually, you know, it will bring, you know, people to Tavistock who don't normally come here, whose partners may wander off the other way if they've come, you know, and go into town and things. So I think it's going to be good for the town. And I'm really happy that most members seem to want to support the application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In which case, I'm going to propose that we support this application. Do I have a seconder? Okay, those who feel able to vote, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so that's fine. Thank you. That's carried. In that case, members, that brings us to the end of the meeting. But please, would you let me have your comments and your conclusions on the Mount Tavy Road and the Chaucer Road applications? Graham?
Just for information, Chair, the website seems to be back up again.
Okay, good. Jan?
Just a point, obviously the Chaucer, the Deer Leap application.
Is a tree.
I do apologise. The Mount Tavy one, the deadline is the 28th.
Okay, so
if we could give a deadline for.
yeah, if assuming the website is up and running, if you could let me have your
tomorrow
by end of play tomorrow, please, that would be really helpful. Okay, in which Leslie.
Sorry, there is also the Gardner Property Investments one. Is that going to be moved to the next DM&L? Yeah, okay. Just want to check.
It's the 16th of February, so we've got time for that one.
Okay.
Okay. Any more for any more? In which case, I bid you farewell. Thank
Happy
you. For your
Burns Night,
participation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well done.
Bye.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Jan, don't go away just yet. I will send you a document very soon in relation to the application.
Are you referring to the Plymouth Road one?
I am.
Okay. Thank you.
I will draft something.
Yeah, because I'll need to obviously get it out by email to sometime.
I know that. I will make sure you get it very promptly tomorrow morning.
That's great. I'll carry on and do the rest of the minutes because obviously there's quite a few recommendations for tomorrow night.
Sure.
So then I'll just await that from you. Thank you.
And I know the clerk has also drafted something, so you'll be able to have a look at them and see how we compare.
I saw he was busily writing away as well.
Yeah, okay. Thanks very much, Jan.